Commander Zara of the Vorthan Empire stood on the bridge of her massive warship, watching the small blue planet through the viewing screen. Her silver eyes glowed with confidence as she studied the primitive world below the humans had been sending weak radio signals into space for barely a century, and their technology seemed laughably basic compared to the advanced Vorthan fleet. The Vorthans had conquered 17 star systems with their energy shields and plasma cannons. No species had ever stood against their might for more than a few solar cycles. These humans, with their crude metal projectiles and chemical explosives, would fall within days on Earth. Captain Lisa Morgan sat in the command center of the North American Defense Network. She was a veteran of many conflicts, but nothing had prepared her for this. The alien ships appeared 3 days ago, massive vessels that blocked out the sun over major cities. Their demands were simple: surrender or face destruction. The first human response came from General Amy Rodriguez, who commanded the Global Defense Forces. She had spent her career studying warfare and knew that conventional tactics would be useless against such advanced technology. But she also knew something the aliens did not. Humans were masters of adaptation and creativity. When the Vorthan attack began, their plasma beams struck military bases around the world. The energy weapons carved through concrete and steel like a hot knife through butter. Zara smiled as she watched the destruction. Her scanners showed no significant return fire from the human positions. But then something unexpected happened. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan was operating a modified railgun system in the Colorado mountains. The weapon had been hastily converted from a research project into a combat system. When the alien fighters swooped down to finish off the base, she fired a tungsten rod at tremendous velocity. The projectile punched straight through the energy shield and destroyed the alien craft in a brilliant explosion. Zara stared at her screens in shock. Her shields were supposed to be impenetrable. They had never failed against any weapon in over 3 centuries of conquest. Yet this primitive kinetic projectile had passed through, as if the shield was not even there, across the planet. Similar scenes played out. Major Beth Harris commanded an artillery unit that began firing proximity shells filled with ceramic fragments. The alien fighters expected energy weapons, and their shields were calibrated to deflect plasma and laser fire. Instead, thousands of small ceramic pieces tore through their hulls like paper. In the Pacific Ocean, Admiral Nancy Clark ordered her submarine fleet to surface and launch their ballistic missiles. The Vorthans watched in confusion as the primitive rockets climbed toward space. Their shields easily deflected the warheads, but when the missiles reached their peak altitude, they released clouds of metallic chaff that interfered with alien sensors and guidance systems. Captain Morgan realized the pattern first. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it was designed to counter other advanced technology. Their shields stopped energy weapons perfectly, but had no defense against simple kinetic impacts. Their sensors could track sophisticated missiles, but were confused by basic jamming techniques. She contacted military leaders around the world and shared her discovery within hours. Human forces began adapting their tactics. Artillery units loaded their guns with solid steel shells instead of explosive rounds. Air forces stripped their missiles of guidance systems and turned them into simple rocket-propelled projectiles. Naval vessels began firing their deck guns at maximum elevation, sending shells on ballistic trajectories toward the alien ships. The Vorthans had never encountered such tactics in their long history of conquest. Every other species they had defeated possessed advanced technology similar to their own. Those civilizations had tried to match Vorthan energy weapons with their own plasma cannons and laser arrays. They had attempted to penetrate Vorthan shields with more powerful energy beams. But humans took a different approach. They went backward in technology, using simpler and more primitive weapons that the alien defenses were not designed to handle. General Rodriguez coordinated the global counterattack. She ordered factories to stop producing guided missiles and start manufacturing simple rockets. Filled with steel ball bearings, chemical plants began producing massive quantities of conventional explosives. Construction companies were recruited to build giant catapults and trebuchets for launching projectiles. The tide of battle shifted dramatically. Alien fighters found themselves under attack from weapons that should have been obsolete centuries ago. Their advanced targeting computers could not predict the flight paths of stones hurled by mechanical siege engines. Their energy shields offered no protection against crossbow bolts fired from modified industrial equipment. Zara watched her forces retreat in disarray for the first time in her military career. The humans were using tactics that defied all logic and military doctrine. How could a species defeat advanced technology with primitive weapons? It violated every principle of technological warfare. But the humans had one more surprise. Dr. Michelle Adams was a physicist who had been working on experimental weapons when the invasion began. She had discovered that human brain patterns could interfere with alien neural interfaces. The Vorthons controlled their ships through direct mental connection, which made them incredibly efficient but also vulnerable. Working with computer programmer Jane Foster, she developed a simple radio transmitter that broadcast human brainwave patterns. The signal confused the alien pilots and disrupted their connection to their ships. Entire squadrons of Vorthon fighters began spinning out of control as their pilots lost the ability to interface with their craft. The final blow came from an unexpected source. Sergeant Maria Santos was a demolitions expert who had been trapped in a collapsed bunker. As alien ground forces approached her position, she rigged a simple explosive device using fertilizer and diesel fuel. The blast was not sophisticated, just a massive chemical explosion that created a shockwave, but the shockwave traveled through the ground and struck the foundation of an alien landing craft. The Vorthons had never considered seismic attacks because energy weapons do not create ground vibrations. Their ships had no defense against earthquakes or underground explosions. Within hours, human forces around the world began digging tunnels and planting conventional explosives beneath alien positions. The invaders watched helplessly as their mighty warships were toppled by simple chemical bombs buried in the dirt. Commander Zara stood on her bridge as reports flooded in from across the planet. Her fleet was in full retreat, defeated by a species that barely understood space travel. The humans had turned their technological disadvantage into a strategic advantage by thinking outside the parameters of conventional warfare. As the last Vorthon ships fled Earth's atmosphere, Zara transmitted a message to her superiors. The humans were unlike any species they had ever encountered. Their primitive technology was actually their greatest strength, because it operated on principles that advanced civilizations had forgotten. Captain Morgan watched the alien ships disappear into the darkness of space. She knew that humanity had won not through superior technology, but through superior adaptability. The invasion had taught them that sometimes the old ways were the best ways and that creativity could triumph over raw technological power. The victory belonged not to advanced weapons or energy shields, but to human ingenuity and the willingness to use whatever tools were available. The aliens had thought human weapons were primitive until they learned that primitive weapons could be the most effective of all.